Irisu Syndrome is a physics-based puzzle horror game. I got my copy of Irisu Syndrome from an old man's estate sale for $3. It was on an old CD with "Do Not Play" written on it in black Sharpie. If you haven't installed it yet, you can get this sketchy zip file from archive.org. The first thing you might do is open the README file, naively believing it would tell you anything about this game and how it's played. You have fallen for one of few hilarious jokes the game may play on you, which is why I'm here to give you a quick guide on how to actually play Irisu Syndrome. Your goal is to hit blocks of the same color into each other. Left click shoots a white block out of your cursor, and right click launches one with the might of Zeus. Another hilarious joke the game plays is by showing you a bunch of blocks falling to the bottom of the board. The main focus of the gameplay is to deal with the blocks falling from the top of the screen before they reach the bottom of the board. You do so by knocking blocks of the same color into one another mid-air. Doing so gives you points and health. The bigger the combo, the more health and the more points you get. Letting a block hit the bottom of the board without touching any blocks of the same color causes that block to die, which fills up your board, giving you less room to work with, and it also takes away some health. Once you run out of health, your game will end, and it will show you a part of the story through an illustration. The story is told over the course of 5 games, with the conclusion coming at the end of the 6th game. The better your score, the more things you'll get to see, so try and do your best. You can revisit these illustrations with additional context by going to the Album tab on the homepage and clicking on each image. Right-clicking will close out the image and bring you back to the main menu. Those are the basic things you'll need to know in order to get started. The less you know, the better experience you'll have, so go get 'em, champ. I believe in you. The rest of this video will be for more in-depth information, so if you're stuck or having a hard time for any reason, you can come back to this section later. Story mode. If you're stuck getting the same ending over and over with the TV broadcast, the reason for that is because you haven't gotten a game where you scored over 20,000 points yet. Ya noob. When you do so, you'll get to see a different ending. However, you're not done after that, cause if you get 40,000 points, you unlock a new way to play the game, which also continues the story. And if you get 100,000 points, you get a special file. It's possible to get locked out of this special file by accessing the other game mode before getting 100,000 points, so don't sweat if you missed out on it. I'll just tell you what it says at the end of the video. Gameplay. Despite the simple controls, the gameplay can be quite tricky. There are a few other controls that can be helpful to know. Using the scroll wheel will fast forward the game slightly. This is helpful mostly at the very start of the game, or if you're impatient like me. I never use these other ones, but Alt can pause the game, Q restarts the game, and R takes you back to the main menu. In order to get big combos and not die, it's helpful to understand how the blocks work. Blocks fall into one of 4 phases: Phase 0, Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phased Out, aka dead. I'm going to over-explain the mechanics now. Phase 0 is the phase that blocks start in as they fall from the top of the screen, and hitting a fallen block with a white block will activate their physics. We'll call this Phase 1. In Phase 1, the blocks lose their translucency and can collide with other blocks, taking them out of Phase 0 and bringing them into Phase 1 as well. Blocks in Phase 1 can be hit with white blocks as many times as you'd like in this state. If a block from either Phase 0 or Phase 1 reach the bottom of the stage, you lose health. This is the scariest stage because if you're not careful, you might activate a chain of blocks that can end your game. It requires quick thinking and finesse to combine blocks of the same color. If 2 of the same colored blocks are launched into each other, they'll both be put into Phase 2. In Phase 2, they start glowing to indicate that you've successfully connected them and that they're worth points. They won't activate any other colors that don't match theirs, so you don't have to worry about them touching other colors. In this stage, you want to try and connect them with as many of the same colored blocks as possible to build up a larger combo. The larger the combo, the more points and health you gain. You can hit them once to try and send them into other blocks of the same color. If you try to hit them more than once, they'll explode and disappear, which doesn't give you points. Blocks in Phase 2 are already counted as scored, so once they hit the bottom of the board, they'll disappear. This is unlike blocks from Phase 0 or Phase 1. If one of those blocks reach the bottom of the board without being hit into a block of the same color, it'll lose you health and that block will be stuck there. You can clear these blocks up by letting a block of the same color touch it. It actually doesn't matter what phase of block, Phase 0, Phase 1, as long as it's the same color, it'll destroy it and score points. It's important to clear these up to avoid getting overrun. Additionally, there are gaps at the top left and top right of the board. If you send a block out of the gaps, it'll disappear and become a problem for somebody else. Out of sight, out of mind. This can be helpful if there aren't any immediate matches. Also, sometimes blocks spawn inside the wall. Depending on its position, it'll either get pushed outside the board or back inside the board when it's activated. Speaking of blocks, let me introduce a couple to you. You got Head Honcho, you got Sprinkus, Mr. Mosby, Tom Ado, all 7 of the Jonas Brothers. You got Jonas, Jonah, Joe, Joey, Joe Mama, Jonathan, Joe Ado. I think that's all of them. The way a block reacts to getting hit by one of your white blocks is dependent on its size and shape. Sprinkus is unpredictable. Small triangles will bounce around like crazy and fuck everything up. I like Mr. Mosby. This is like your everyday working man's block. It's small, but not too small, so it's maneuverable, and it moves predictably because it's square. The Jonas Brothers is the dream situation, and it happens every so often. I try and hit the block in the middle of the pack so that it doesn't trigger any unwanted blocks, but there's a lot of variability in these situations, so I can't really give a one-size-fits-all answer for what to do in a situation where there's a bunch of blocks together. Now let's talk strategy, since we're familiar with the blocks and know how they work. This is a little technique that I call juggling. I made it up myself. This is a technique that I call bumbling. It's an offshoot of juggling, except he's flipping around all crazy style. This is a technique I call drop shotting. If you click inside of a block towards the top of it, it'll activate into Phase 1, but will not be sent upwards. It'll start to fall immediately. This is really helpful in tight situations when you have 2 blocks of the same color on top of each other. This is an iteration of the drop shot called the reach around, where you drop it below a bunch of garbage so that you can reach the other side of the board. This is an iteration of the drop shot called Garbage Man, where you girl drop it to the floor. I love the way your booty go. This is a little technique that I call fuck all this shit. I believe it's pretty self-explanatory. This is a technique that I call panicking, where you fuck it all up. Dear God, what the fuck is going on? Fucking shoot everything, all weapons are go! These are but a few of the techniques that you'll master on your way to becoming a block flipping champion. So now that you're capable of achieving greatness, let's talk about the alternative game mode you'll unlock at 40,000 points. This is called Metsu mode. You can switch between the 2 modes by clicking the cat icon on the bottom right once it's unlocked. It shares the same mechanics as Block Flipper 1, but now there's bubbles. In general, this game mode is slower paced and does not include triangles, only squares and circles. The Irisu syndrome engine is only capable of rendering 2 shapes at the same time. Similarly, you may combine 2 squares mid-air, but you can also combine a square and a circle. The circles work the same way as dead blocks would in Block Flipper 1. However, it's way more lenient in how long a square can touch the bottom of the board before it's considered dead. This is helpful because you can kind of fire and forget a lot of the time, allowing your square to bounce or roll into position. The bubbles will float to the top of the board, and you can pop them to bring them back down to earth. The most important thing is to keep the board as empty as possible. Combining 1 block and 1 bubble is totally fine, and in fact, it's recommended as a means to keep your board clean. You can force bubbles into the playing field by clicking on them while they're still in the floor. This can be helpful if you have a block of the same color that you want to combine with a bubble. You can do the same thing for squares at the top of the board. Another helpful tip is that bubbles can chain into each other if activated. Sometimes it's worth throwing some blocks underneath a bubble to make it roll into another. Sometimes you have to prop a bubble up towards the surface by putting some blocks underneath. And sometimes you just gotta accept that some blocks are gonna be an L. You might lose health, but you can always clear it later. As part of my tips and tricks, the techniques I showed earlier are especially useful in this version of the game due to it being slower and more methodical. At the end of each game you play, you'll get little notes on the title screen of Metsu Mode. These will reveal more of the story. There are 6 of these, and after doing this, the final thing left to do is to reach level 100 in a game of Metsu Mode. This will end your game and give you the final text document to send off the story. Oh. You just win. You know, sometimes you just are goated and you just win without even like really trying. Like I wasn't even trying in that game, guys. Imagine like if I was really trying. I hope you had fun playing and learning this game along with me. It's a game I really cherish, so I hope you play it all the way through and see the story that this game wants to tell. I promise it won't disappoint you. As for the super duper secret thing you get for achieving 100,000 points in Block Flipper 1, this is the image it gives you. Good luck making heads or tails of it. Few people know this game as being a major source of inspiration for Doki Doki Literature Club, but even fewer have played Irisu Syndrome, and I think that should change. I think content creators should give it a shot, specifically streamers. If you do so, I recommend doing a full desktop capture, since that photo in the installation folder might be different from how you last remembered it.